So, in a world where truth is often hidden behind layers of lies, what happens when we finally uncover what we were never meant to see? This story explores the fragile nature of trust, the complexity of our choices, and the search for meaning in a life built on secrets. Michael stretched sweetly. How he loved his business trips. He was always awaited by Alice, and although they weren't cheap, they had been managing recently. He'd gotten himself into quite a financial hole, but Michael didn't worry too much. His wife worked, and eventually they'd pay off the loan. He'd taken out this loan as soon as he met Alice, and soon it would be a year, but repaying it hadn't been possible yet. Alice wasn't his wife, who was content with whatever came her way. Alice needed the best, as always. Whenever he thought about his wife, his mood soured. Michael understood perfectly what she'd say when she found out about the loan. She'd try to blame him for everything and tell him to sort it all out himself. She was always so displeased when he spent time with friends in the sauna for a few days. What was even worse, it seemed like she didn't care about him at all. Other wives, his friends' wives, would kick their husbands out of the sauna, but his Kylie never did that. One time when he was drunk, he even told her, "It feels like you're completely indifferent to me. You're like a cold fish. Why don't you come and start a fight in the sauna?" Kylie then smirked and said, "Maybe because I respect myself." Michael flared up. "What does your respect have to do with it? Don't you understand that you're embarrassing me in front of my friends? It feels like all the other men have wives, but I don't have anyone." Then she said something that made him even angrier. "No one can embarrass you more than you embarrass yourself." Oh, how much Michael wanted to hit her, but he held back. "Don't forget who pulled you out of the mud. One wrong move, and you're back in it." That was a punch below the belt, reminding him of their early days. He didn't even remember the circumstances under which they met, but it happened one summer in a park. Michael and his friends were walking home when they saw a girl playing the violin. She often played there, and Michael thought of her as just another beggar. On that day, some drunk guys started bothering her, pushing her and scattering her coins on the ground. There were 2 of them, and Michael's group had about 6 people. He intervened. He was very proud of himself later, and Kaylee was really grateful. It turned out the girl lived in some hut with her elderly grandmother. The grandmother was planning to make peace, but Kylie didn't have anyone to help her. That was the direct path from which it was hard to escape. Then, without realizing it, Michael realized he liked her. After thinking about it, he decided to marry her, especially since he thought she'd be obedient. Kylie worked like a horse. Michael worked too, but didn't push himself too hard. They didn't have much money, and Michael never really thought about why not. Kylie, of course, couldn't look like Alice, but Alice? Michael glanced at the sleeping Alice. Every man dreams of such a woman. Tonight, he had to leave again. The bank had started calling again. Kylie was getting paid today, so he needed to bring something to the bank tomorrow to avoid being constantly harassed. Kylie wouldn't leave him. She'd give him money because she loved him, because he was the only one for her, because he pulled her out of the mud. Alice came into the kitchen as Michael was finishing setting the table for breakfast. He rented this apartment so Alice wouldn't have to wander from one rental to another. She'd said she had a place to stay, but she was suing her ex-husband for it. Michael didn't ask too many questions, as long as Alice was with him. He'd figure out the rest later. "We need to talk," Alice said. Michael smiled and kissed her on the nose. "Sweetheart, I understand. You're going to miss me, but you have to understand it's not time yet." Alice shook her head and smirked. "There's no more time, Michael." He looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean? Did you find someone else?" "No. What are you talking about?" Alice smiled gently, but then tears appeared in her eyes. "Michael, you know I'm already 30. I'm a woman, and like any woman, I want a family." Michael didn't mind the idea of starting a family with Alice, but he needed to solve his problems first, and only then could he think about a new family. He knew perfectly well that without Kaylee, he couldn't solve anything. "Sweetheart, we just need to wait a little longer. I want more than anything to wake up next to you every day." Alice didn't let him finish. "Michael, time is running out, and I didn't know how to tell you, but we're going to have a baby. Alice looked him in the eyes with such a deep gaze that Michael got goosebumps. You understand, the baby is yours and mine. Michael stared at her for a while, then suddenly jumped up and hugged her. Now he felt like an eagle. He was going to be a father. Wow! Yes, a child will tie Alice to him even more than a wedding ring. Alice, I'm so happy you can't even imagine. Michael, you understand we need to decide everything quickly. The child shouldn't be born in a rented apartment without a father. That's not acceptable. Michael fell silent. Yes, the dilemma, the apartment he was living in. They had bought it together with Kylie. However, it was in his name since he was the head of the household. But in case of a divorce, things could get complicated. He had to figure out a way to make Kylie disappear from his life. So, get ready, we're heading to my city now. We definitely can't be apart anymore, Michael said, as Alice was busy doing something. While Alice was out, Michael called his wife Kilia. We need to talk seriously, he said. I'm listening. You need to understand me. I'm a man. I want a proper family with children. You couldn't give me that, Kilia. But I offered to get checked, Kilia responded. The checkup is for you. I'm completely healthy and the recent events prove it, Michael said. Recent events? Yes, soon I'll be a father. I hope you understand that you need to leave. No scandals, no complaints. A heavy silence hung on the line before Kilia, with a weak voice, responded, Okay, wait for me. I need to sign some papers to make sure the child lives well. Fine, I'll wait, Michael said, hanging up. Now, the most important thing was to think things through. Just then the phone rang. Hello? The conversation began with raised voices, but Michael quickly regained control. The call was redirected to the owner, and they arranged for a personal meeting. Alice wasn't happy about it. She would have to sit in the car and wait. Sweetheart, be patient. I need Kilia to sign some papers so she doesn't claim any part of the property, Michael said. But the truth was, he needed more than just that from her. Kilia for you. It doesn't mean anything. You're alone, with nothing interesting in your life. But don't forget, where would you be if it wasn't for me? Michael's plan was beginning to unsettle Kilia. At first she thought he was joking, but as he spoke more, she realized he was selling her for his debts. Of course, not officially, but it was hard to call it anything else. Kilia was so numb she didn't even protest. Tomorrow we'll go there, we'll figure it out on the spot, she said. She was grateful to Michael, at least for not throwing her out of the apartment. The bank owner was only a few years older than her, maybe 5 at most. So, now you'll be paying off your husband's debt? He asked. She nodded silently. I don't understand, but why? He has absolved himself of any responsibility. How will you continue to communicate with him now? Kilia looked up at him. Now he's with someone else. They're expecting a child. I have to quit my job, or can I stay? The man shook his head. Kilia, wake up. Start yelling, getting outraged. Your husband has practically sold you, and you act like nothing happened. She looked at him with tired eyes. I don't care. He grabbed her by the arm. Come with me. He sat her in the car and turned to her. Did you eat today? She shrugged. I don't remember. All right, let's start with food. To her surprise, after they were served food in the city's most expensive restaurant, she felt ravenous. By the end of the dinner, her mood had lifted. Now you look noticeably better. I understand you have nowhere to live. I have a big house, but don't get any wrong ideas. Many rooms are empty. You can stay with me for a while, the man offered. Kilia shrugged, knowing full well that she was agreeing to this. But on the first night, she didn't feel anything from him. They met in the morning in the kitchen. He even drove her to work, but made no attempts to get anything more from her. Kilia couldn't help but watch him, and she suddenly realized that there was another type of man in the world, completely different from Michael. A year passed since Michael returned with his young mistress. They got married right after his divorce from Kylia. By the way, Kylia didn't attend the trial, but sent a lawyer. Michael didn't care. The main thing was that his debts were paid, and Kylia didn't try to claim the apartment. After that, Michael's troubles began. First, Alice forced him to quit his job and find another one where they paid well. Secondly, Alice lost all her charm. She bossed him around like a general, something Michael never experienced with Kelia, who had always been the one giving orders. He didn't even try to resist it, rationalizing it by thinking that pregnant women acted differently. But when their child was born, Alice completely lost it. Michael started avoiding coming home because when he was there, he wasn't working. And a man was supposed to work all the time. Sometimes they let him stay at home with the baby when Alice got tired and went out to club. One evening, as he was looking at their 5-month-old baby, he suddenly realized that the child had a very striking appearance. At that age, his eyebrows, brown eyes, and dark hair were already very visible. Of course, all babies change, but this one had a reddish tint, while Alice was blonde. Michael knew that if he asked Alice about it, he'd probably get a frying pan to the face, and just a few days later, he ended up in the hospital after a fall and broke his arm. Alice was furious, glaring at him in the emergency room. He hid his face from the nurses, but when Alice finally left, Michael was able to breathe again. So, they promised him freedom, but they would only let him go home in 2 weeks. He accidentally saw it in the ward and, for some reason, pushed the door. Confused, he explained what he wanted, and the doctor calmly replied that of course everything could be arranged. Michael took money from the secret account and started waiting. A week later, he received a secret envelope, went into the corridor to return to his ward, and saw Kelia. He was not just surprised, he almost fainted. It was his ex-wife. She looked like she had just stepped off the cover of a magazine, with a small pregnancy bump highlighted by her outfit. "You're pregnant. You look good, Kelia," Michael said. Kelia nodded. "Thank you." Then she glanced at the sign behind Michael. "It's strange to see you here. I thought you were supposed to have a child already." Michael frantically thought about what to say to stop Kelia from leaving. "Oh, to hell with it. Let's get coffee. There's a cafe in the hospital." She smiled. "No, thanks. My husband is waiting downstairs." She turned and walked down the stairs. Michael automatically moved to follow her. What husband, he thought. But at the bottom of the stairs, Kelia was greeted by the same banker to whom Michael had once given his wife. Michael wanted to tear his hair out, but he pulled himself together. It was fine. She had a husband, she had a child. Back in his room, he opened the envelope and quickly scanned the lines about the probability of parenthood. 0%. He stared blankly at one spot for a long time, and then he started to cry. In 3 days, he would return home to his beloved wife and their biological son. If you like the story, please support me with a thumbs up.